I'm Reverend Elizabeth Cichocki. I'll be giving you the sermon today. So a Sunday school teacher asked her class, does anyone know the definition of sins of omission? The little girl raised her hand and replied, aren't those the sins we should have committed but didn't? Thank you for the one laugh. I grew up in a Roman Catholic household, went to church every week and holidays, going to Catholic grade school and high school. Sometimes we had to go to church during the week. In my teenage years, I actually taught catechism to children at my Catholic church. As a child, though, I didn't understand or really care about what was said during the sermon until I got older. Some of the sermons were fire and brimstone, like we're going to end up going on down there. And then some were about God's love. At that time, it seemed logical, but I understood it to be more important was to avoid hell and really put our sights on heaven. As I became more of a critical thinker, the more I have allowed myself to think more analytically, I began to question the tried and true doctrines of Catholicism. Some things no longer made sense. They didn't match God's nature, God's love. And when I use the word love, I don't mean the Hallmark card or movie variety of soft and fuzzy poetry, but love as described in 1 Corinthians in the Bible. I feel this quote is universal to all religions. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. This does not sound much like the fire and brimstone God in the sermons I used to hear as a child. So this all got me thinking about sin, which is brought up a lot in the Catholic Church. What is sin? In the Bible, the word sin actually means to miss your mark. So if you're aiming for something or how to be a certain way and you miss your mark, they call that a sin, or that's one definition. The reason this definition is so important because it brings up two things. First, there's a target, a goal, maybe a bullseye that we're aiming for. And second, it speaks to our intention. What's our intention? What intentions are we setting out? Once we know there's that target, then we can choose to hit or miss it. So does this sound like any other religion? Maybe spiritualism? Spiritualism views sin as a misunderstanding of natural law rather than a basic moral failing. It emphasizes personal responsibility and the consequences of one's actions. As you all know, when you come to church, we say the principles. And the seventh spiritualist principle says, what we affirm the moral responsibility of individuals, and that we make our own happiness or unhappiness as we obey or disobey nature's physical and spiritual laws. We know this. We try to follow this. And this is also similar to the law of karma, that we are responsible for our actions. And I would say it's not only our actions, it's our thoughts as well. In the Catholic religion, they list the 7 vices, also known as the 7 deadly sins. Where did these come from? Well, apparently they began with a person called Evagrius Ponticus in about the late 300 AD, a long time ago, who was a Christian monk, a writer, and a leader of a group called the Desert Fathers. So these monks lived out in the desert, traveled around many years out there. Evagrius sought to give guidance to the other monks with the practice of the 7 thoughts that could destroy the life of a monk. These thoughts turned into the 7 deadly sins, which are pride, avarice, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. You know, I thought it was very interesting that the monk used the word thought, not action, not sin. I agree with using the word thought because everything we do starts with our thoughts. So I'm not going to refer to the 7 deadly sins, or I am going to refer to the 7 deadly sins as thoughts, because this aligns more with spiritualism. As we know, we've heard this before. Watch our thoughts, they become words. Watch your words, they become deeds. Watch our deeds, they become habits. Watch our habits, they become character. And character is everything. So I wanted to go through the list of the 7 negative thoughts and their definitions. So the first one we'll talk about is pride. This is an excessive love of self. Then avarice, which is also known as greed. Basically, it's being a cheapskate. Envy. Envy is, I want what you have. Okay, I want what you have. Okay. Wrath. Wrath is quick to anger, having like a hot triggered temper. Sure, we all know someone like that. The next one is lust. And if you don't know what this is, go watch the movie A Streetcar Named Desire. That's all I'm going to say on that. Gluttony is excess, overindulgence. Like when we stuff our mouth with our favorite ice cream and eat it quickly so no one takes it away from us. Or am I the only one that does that? And the last one is sloth. It's being lazy. You heard lazy bones? Something like that. So it's important to remember that this list of negative thoughts are convenient categories, right? And they sometimes will kind of overlap a bit. Another way to remember these 7 deadly sins is to match them up with the 7 dwarfs. Let's have some fun. I'm going to ask you which sin is connected to one of the 7 dwarfs. So you can feel free to say your answer out loud if you want to, okay? So some of these, I don't know if they really match up, but let's play this game anyway. So which sin is sleepy? Very good. Yay, you get 10 points. Which sin is grumpy? Wrath. Oh, okay. It's wrath. Okay, I think Jameson. Which sin is doth? Doth.
What is that?
Doctor in the 7 dwarfs. Remember doth? No? Okay, it's pride. It's pride. Or so they say. I didn't mean to list. Which is happy? Think of what?
That's not a sin.
No, it's like they're the way they are, which is it connected to? It's a way to remember this. So it's lust. Okay, okay, it kind of makes sense. Which sin is bashful? Is associated with bashful. It's gluttony. And which sin is associated with sleazy? This is where they kind of go off. I don't really get the connection.
Yeah, cheese.
I wish, really. But according to the person who wrote this, it's envy.
Yeah.
Okay. And which sin is associated with dopey? The last one we haven't said yet. It's avarice or greed. Okay, well, that wasn't as easy as I thought. Okay, so today we're only going to talk about one of the negative thoughts in more detail, and then over the my next few sermons, I'm going to cover the rest of them. So starting with the negative thought of pride, or doth, if that's easier to remember, which is viewed by many Christians as the core of all sins. Pride holds a major place in spiritual and moral debates. It is a complicated human aspect of our nature that, when left unchecked, can lead us away from our purpose of life. For this reason, knowing the difference between healthy self-esteem, which is a good thing, and the difference between a sinful pride is really important. You know, sometimes we typically think of pride as a caricature, right, of the braggadocious snob. But there are many nuanced ways in which we commit the sins of pride by making idols out of ourselves. In the most basic sense, every sin is ultimately a sin of pride because it represents a turning away from humility to serve our own will. And pride is not innately wrong. Pride is a natural human emotion that can be seen as a healthy sense of self-worth and accomplishment. But when pride becomes negative, when it takes on a different nature, when it changes from a sense of accomplishment and self-worth into an excessive desire for recognition, a pretentious person, or an attitude of self-sufficiency, that's when it's wrong. Pride seems like a cancer, like cells that lose their place in the scheme and grow to kill the body it supports. C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, called pride spiritual cancer. a cancer that eats up love and contentment. It is actually a sign of our own insecurity and feelings of being inferior. With little encouragement, we tend to move to center stage and focus on the world picture around ourselves. Pretty soon, we think we are the center of everyone's attention. And those around us are just props. Consider a rabbi and a New England minister were getting to know each other. Proudly, the minister said, "One of my ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence." The rabbi responded, "I understand your pride. One of my ancestors signed the Ten Commandments." Pride is something we may not see in ourselves. Signs of pride in a person can be displayed in different ways, often revealing an inflated sense of self-importance and a resistance to humility. I'm going to talk about 3 types of pride: superiority pride, timid pride, and sensitivity pride. To determine whether pride of superiority has any hold on our soul, ask the following questions. Do we hold ourselves above others? Are we prone to belittle others? Do we insist on having the last word? Those may be something we know already. We know that characteristic. But timid pride, we may not be as familiar with. It's a type of self-love that ironically manifests as self-hatred. The timidly prideful live in fear of what others may think about them. While it may seem to be the opposite of pride, timid pride is actually an inverted form of pride because it is still motivated by distorted self-love. To identify timid pride, ask the following questions. Are we self-conscious? Are we so afraid to make mistakes that we just stop trying? Do we exaggerate our weaknesses and hide our talents? And the final type of pride is called sensitivity. This is another type of inverted pride that results from self-love being wounded. It goes something like this. We make ourselves feel bad. We want to feel bad. We get a false joy out of feeling bad. So to identify sensitivity pride, we want to ask these questions. Are we unable to laugh at ourselves? Do we misjudge or misinterpret others? Are we moody? By asking these questions to oneself, we can actively work toward eliminating pride from our life and develop a spirit of humility. So one day a man came to his wife and said, "Honey, I want to confess a great sin." "What is it?" she asked. "The sin of pride," he answered. "Why, just this morning I sat for an hour in front of the mirror, admiring how handsome I am." The wife said, Oh, honey, that's not the sin of pride. That's the sin of imagination. What do we do about our thoughts of pride? Having humility is the answer to having thoughts of pride. Just as pride is a lie about oneself, humility is the truth about oneself. Humility is the universal antidote for all forms of pride. Humility is simply honesty about our authentic self. The humble neither overestimate nor underestimate their own talents and faults. The humble honestly acknowledge shortcomings as well as acknowledging their talents. By practicing humility, we can combat the negative thoughts of pride. While examining our thoughts can sometimes be painful, we gain a greater understanding of our own soul. As we grow in spiritual maturity, we should seek not only to avoid negative thoughts, but to root out the tendencies toward thinking negative. We need to recognize these sneaky thoughts of pride. We can overcome spiritual barriers and approach a more profound connection with others. Let us be patient as we persist in our hope to overcome pride. We should also remember that our goal is not to perfectly overcome pride. Our desire is to be less and less prideful in our daily life. From Corinthians, love is not proud. So pride or humility is a choice that we make. Remember, both have consequences in our life. Amen.
Amen.